everyone, welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you are acknowledging Anzac Day, lest we not forget, very important day in my household as well, because I was brought up by an ex-serviceman that served during WW2, so Godspeed and God bless to everyone who is acknowledging that. If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop subscribe. It does mean the absolute world to me. We're smashing them out. I can't thank you enough. The interaction on the channel has been absolutely grouse. You can go a step further and become a member of the channel. You can do that. Link is in the description. You won't need to click iOS if you are on there, because they've fallen out with YouTube. We do wonderful things. We're a good community. It helps support the channel and it helps us do things like sponsor Dom a coup and things like that, so it means the world for me. If you are returning though, good day to you. How are we all doing? And today it's the review with a little bit of input from you. So what we do every week is we review the game, but we also ask you guys and girls to come up with some questions and we try and go in depth. So first off, here's my initial thoughts. 97-62 we went down. It was a tough old game really, and I wouldn't say I'm hitting the panic alarm yet. No, I'm not, but there is some things that I do think we need to really address. For me, the big thing is we've talked about transition, and we're starting to see transition become... I don't really care about scores from transition. I don't really care about scores from turnover. What I want to see is the elements there. And I'll acknowledge first off that Voss has done a remarkable job. Obviously, he's had, 5 rounds? Probably 3 to 6 months with the group, and he has stabilised a lot of key areas. My big concern for this at the moment when I watch this is everything is really 2 speeds. It's either normal speed or really slow. And particularly when I see it in the back line, and we'll cover it because some of the questions are really great and I want to save the good analytics for that to reward you guys and girls. But it does worry me when I look and I see when McGovern was there, Carlton were really potent in there and really quick. Now I'm starting to see a lot of eggs being the Marchbank, McGovern, to the lesser extent Parks basket. That's definitely a key impetus on how the backline moves the ball. They're looking for direct, sharp movement. My issue is when the ball comes into our backline, particularly it's stagnant, particularly under pressure. You'll see that there's a hell of a lot of handballs. We covered that last week in the quarters that Carlton struggle. And them handballs aren't handballs with purpose. Them handballs are getting them to the same players all the time. If Doc's not exiting D50, it's that high loopy kick over the shoulder. I'm shitting myself. I'm trying to gain and get it out of there. It's not a flat kick that you would expect to clearance. It's a loop, and that is my concern. Because the players that are playing there don't have it. Newman is guilty of this at times. Young is guilty of this at times. Whittaker was really guilty. And I know he gets a lot of praise. But Whittaker, all them kicks that he had a real good disposal efficiency as well. I'm expecting a leader to take that ball and go, right, okay, we need to get out of this and we need to transition something. We need to have a bit of impetus. And it's that loopy, safe, high ball. And it's got a lot of height as well. It's not a direct kick to anyone's advantage. It's a hit and hope, and that is something that's becoming really poignant. What worries me is the last 2 weeks, particularly the Hawthorn and this one, St Kilda have beaten them, and what St Kilda are accused of is being too dynamic in the way they move the ball forward with their injection. And for me it's been a tactical disaster, because the second half of this game, my initial takeout was Carlton really went safe. It felt like we weren't set up to win, and granted PeterV went off and you can use that as an excuse, but it wasn't around the contest was my issue. It was the way we moved the ball. It was really set up so we were structurally safe, and ultimately you saw what you saw in the latter rounds last year. Eventually you knock on a door long and hard enough it opens. And that is a big thing, because Fremantle and Hawthorn don't score points organically. They rely on your turnover. And it was suicidal, the way we move the ball. It needs to be a lot quicker. It seems very one speed. And that is my issue. The midfield is very one speed. The backline particularly is very one speed in its movement. And my third point of here is, I was watching Melbourne and then I was watching Brisbane this weekend. And it's very one-dimensional how we move into our 50 as well at times. You see the amount of times that Melbourne and Brisbane have their small forwards hit the lead. Have you ever seen anyone at Carlton hit the lead in the last 2 rounds particularly who aren't Harry and Charlie? And that is it. The small forwards don't seem to get involved in the game. And that is a concern for me, because the first 3 rounds, what was a real staple was when that ball hit the deck, they were there. They were ahead of the ball, they were in front of the ball, they were looking to enact pressure, they were looking to do something. At the moment, the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if, I'm assuming it's pressure. These boys are starting to hit the ball high. They're starting to really go for what is the cheap option in my... It's a soft option. I would almost dare to say, and it's quite harsh, it's a cowardly option. And when I look at this list, particularly with the injuries we've had, you're starting to see players come into it who are a lot more safe and make decisions. And I don't want to be critical on players, but I look at Nunes and I look at Cottrell. These are 2 guys that I'm just going to use as examples. I look at them in the VFL, very offensive, very aggressive. They look to take the game on. And I haven't seen that. I've seen that maybe in 5 minutes of 2 games. And that is a real confidence issue, and that is a real issue for me, that the ball isn't getting moved quick enough. It's becoming very stagnant. And I think that starts in the back line. Although it's structured at times, when it's getting caught on that overlap, and that is the O word there for Carlton, there is no overlap when we've got the ball. And when you overlap against us, it's chaos. It is chaos in there. There's no one that's sat away from the contest thinking, you know what, I'm going to leave this to everyone else. I'm going to make myself available, and when we win the ball back, I'm going to get it, and then we go. Carlton, even in the first quarter of this game, and I mentioned it on the live, it's slow. And it's something that if you watch Carlton play in the last 6 years, when they move quickly, it hides a lot of the inadequacies. This side will never be a good ball-using side. When it has all the ball, which is how Voss is set up, warning signs are there when you're a turnover specialist side like Fremantle. You'll love playing it because you know that Carlton like to overuse it. They like to, and it is a weak area. So for me, there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and I think it's a lot starts at the selection table this week. I think North Melbourne is a free hit. They haven't really got anything to fear. So this is the game that the boys have to go out, because at the moment, it's all well and good playing this way, and you will win games, as proven this week. As proven this season, Carlton have won 4 of them. You can win games through sheer guile and intensity, but against the sides that are well structured, that only gets you so far. And I think it's a lot more complicated issue than just fix the transition. I think that Carlton having a bit more bolder approach with the ball movement, particularly going a little bit more direct through the corridor, will help out. So that are my initial thoughts. Let's see what you guys and girls said at home, and let's get straight into the fans' questions, my favourite part. This is an absolute amazing question here from Andrew. Thank you very much to you for your question. Where is the run and carry handball change and corridor attack? I think that's a really interesting one. What I want to show you is going back to the selection. It starts at the selection table. I want to see at the top there, that's when Carlton probably had their best 6, in my opinion, down the back. And so far this season, obviously, I would say Stocker is there. But you look at how they moved it. Now, this game was very similar in the terms of levels of pressure that Richmond brought. If you remember, it was a 4th quarter turnaround for Carlton. And you can see how they move the ball. Now, what I want you to see is we're going left to right of the screen. So that 8% is defence. That 23% of Fremantle is defence, right? And you can see where the higher percentages from Carlton there were in the areas I would expect you to bail out. So that there is about 70 out from goal, into the midfield, into the traditional midfield, into the wing. And what Carlton did really well there was they attacked the corridor. As you can see, they really did look to attack the corridor and then get it out there, get it away from the furnace. And then they entered in a more reliable way. You can see that quadrant there. There are a lot higher percentages. Now, what I've noticed is why Carlton, if you look against Fremantle, is very similar in the last 3 rounds. You're getting a lot of ball use in your back quadrant. Look at Fremantle, 23% in the centre-half back, in the key cornerstones, and in the flank back positions there. And a lot of these are handballs. Like, a ridiculous amount of them are handballs. You're talking almost one-to-one in this area. And what you're seeing there, in my opinion, is you're seeing handballs to get yourself out of trouble. You're not taking the ownership on. There's a few times we've seen players like Williams turn, spin round, and where he was against Richmond, where he turned, spin round, jettison the kick to back pocket to Doc. Doc would take it off and boom it down the wing. You look at the good sides, and what they do is they start where, if you look at that Richmond thing, is in your goal square, they'll kick to the back pocket, and then they go out that way, deep. Carlton are just going deep from that back pocket, and it is causing chaos. It is meaning that the turnover zones, and that middle quadrant there is the turnover zones of great sides. Your Melbournes, your Fremantles at the moment, who are really high up on that ladder. Your Richmonds in your 17s and 18s. That's where the walls come. Them two walls we talk about are usually oscillating just inside 50 and it's outside 50. And I agree with you that it needs to be quicker. It needs to be run and carry. At the moment, Carlton aren't looking at that. Why Adam Sard stands out, particularly in the last 3 rounds, is in that fourth quarter, he gets the ball and he's going. He's going, and he is a key cornerstone there to hitting that 20% and 13% against Richmond. He looks deep. He looks deep. He breaks into that quadrant and then gives it up, or looks to play the 1-2. At the moment, there's not many players in that back line, apart from Doc and Sard, who are looking to do that. Whittaker, in particular, the last 2 weeks, a lot of his kicks are in that 13% and that 11%. He's kicking there, and literally Carlton are getting lucky that they've got tolls there. But the problem is when you're getting the ball there, and you've got, say, Curnow or Harry's there, who are you kicking to? Who are you kicking to? It's not so bad where we praised Charlie and Harry in that Richmond game, who were taking marks, sending it out, and then they had each other to kick to. It's a real disjointed effect, and I agree with you. And that is something Carlton have massively missed, Mitch McGovern, because all of his kicks in his first couple of games were through that corridor. He took the intercept mark, he got it. Parks, who's playing that role at the moment, is giving it off. He's giving it off, and that extra touch adds extra pressure because it means someone is behind the ball for him. That's a great question, and for me, that is something that Carlton needs to add. A bit of pace, not speed physically, speed on the ball. Give the ball some revs. Do you know what I mean? Give the ball some revs. Great question, Andrew. I really enjoyed that one. So this was asked quite a lot, our defensive structure. So, I mean, let's talk about it. Matt DT asked, why do we struggle to move the ball from D50 so badly and make it look easy when opposition do it? It's a great question. Do you think we have one too many defenders who like to play loose? I love what they offer defensively, but surely your job first is to defend. I think that's a good question. I'd like to understand the defensive system Hamill and Voss are trying to introduce. Seems you're unorganised without the ball in hand. We should be more defensively sound. Understanding we are missing personnel in the back line. Good question. And are we playing too much half-back flankers, playing more mids? Okay, cool. Well, we'll cover it first. I mean, Franco, I think at times there is... I wouldn't say that these players are half-back flankers, to be honest. I mean, I would say that Boyd's best role probably is a pocket defender. Doc Sard, yes. Newman, yes. Parks, I think he's going to be a third tall. And Williams is... I mean, potentially, you've got a lot of guys there that probably play their best football at half-back. Doc being one of them, but he's more of a back pocket and looking to play the ball. I agree with you there. The defensive system will cover defenders played loose. Now, that's a good question because that leads us on to answering 2 questions. So thank you very much, Luke, Jimmy, Mark, DT and Franco. Legends, as always. So let's understand what Carlton try and do. So when the ball comes into this area, generally what Carlton like to do, and we're going to say that this is McGovern or Parks, right? You've got your 2 keys here. What these guys do is they gravitate to the ball. When you find that against Richmond, what worked really well is the midfield pushed up here to work in front of the contest in case it came out. But McGovern peeled from deep, and you found that a player like Doc or Sard would be brave and come here. And Carlton play a zonal system, which is the modern day way. You can't really play man-on-man defence anymore. Zonal systems, whether we like it or not, the old school mentality, you play it in stages. So genuinely, Where I think Carlton go wrong is Oscar Mcdonald, for me, is over Lewis Young, because he is just a static one-on-one defender, which frees them up. But when the ball is into contest, ideally here, if this is, say, McGovern and this is Whittaker, Mcdonald would block and be one-on-one, and that would allow McGovern or Whittaker to free up and take it at its highest point. And then what they did is they either kicked to these midfielders that oscillated around D50, go here, or they had the outlet ball here and we went out that way. What you're finding happening at the moment is Carlton get dragged into this contest, and that is partly, they still do this. You still see Young, Whittaker's done it, Doc now is doing it, Parks is spoiling first, and Carlton have gone from intercept marking to spoiling, really. And that is a big thing. You saw Whittaker take a lot of uncontested marks. Now, whether that's pressure or whether that's an onus to try and get the smalls involved because they know it's becoming contested and they don't have the kicking power minus McGovern and they don't have the reliability of Oscar Mcdonald, could be partly that. But for me, what I'm seeing is that this ball comes down here into contest and then there's a handball straight back into traffic. And the only way out here is kicking, and you've lost your spread. And we talk about that a lot. You've got to be able to spread from these contests fast. If you watch Melbourne, imagine that these guys here are Petty, Lever and May, right? And the ball comes into contest and they'll have their smalls, but they have a real regimented system of keeping these guys here. And May will come for the ball, and if he misses it, it goes along here. Goes along here and we're out, and it's disciplined. And they still have natural separation at the breakdown of the contest. I feel like Carlton are becoming really dependent on getting numbers around the ball. And it's almost like it's no point playing zonal if you get lost in the zone. And Carlton are becoming really guilty of being lost in the zone. And it's discipline there, and it is partly personnel. For me, I think that the back six has to be ASAP. You have to bring McGovern in. McGovern in. I enjoyed the Parks experiment, but he has to go away and gain the confidence that when he is getting the ball, he has got to deliver that out of D50. If he's not and he's handballed into looking to other people, it's an extra touch, it's extra pressure. Because handballs get you out of pressure, they invite pressure though. So whoever you're handballing to has to either break line to do it. So for me, I think Carlton need to find a way of getting rid of Newman, getting rid of Young, and getting rid of Parks and bringing in McGovern Stocker, because he's an exceptional user of the ball and very direct, and bringing in Mcdonald. And I think you have to play that one-on-one defender. Young can work, and I think there's still time for him, but for me, I think Mcdonald is a lot more defensive-minded. So to answer your question, I do think there's a lot of guys trying to do something, and we've become very spoil-heavy as opposed to taking it. And that is a fear, again, the F word, a fear of making mistakes. Carlton can't afford to bring it to ground because simply they're not good enough. Jeff asks, too late I know, but a couple of things on my mind. In passing on pressure by not holding on to the ball for longer and drawn players in big issue like the kick to ball handball ratio in this game. Can the delivery to our forwards be more to the advantage, you think? It's a good thing. So this is just before this game, as we saw. And you can see that Carlton's kick to handball ratio, particularly under the pressure, and it was very similar this game. I just haven't formulated a formulae for it yet. But as you can see here, when pressure happens, them red numbers, Carlton look to handball. And the problem is what Cripper is really good at is he takes the contacts and he handballs and Carlton are out. Now the issue this week was Walsh and Chera didn't really add any second level pace. It was very one-dimensional, and this is a problem with Carlton. Very one-dimensional. It's in the speed of movement, particularly when the crooks are down. And it happens in stages where it gets better. But this is the big issue because Carlton start to go shorter with their kicks. They go higher but less distance. They overuse the handball to try and find it because they know that's the issue. You can see it. They're looking for Doc actively to get the ball out of there. They're looking for Whittaker, and Whittaker has started to resort to a lot shorter, shallower kick. And that pulls the forwards back because they're like, fuck, the ball's not coming here. So what you start to see with Carlton's system is it's literally being played in a half of the field when it should be playing in the whole. And I agree with you. Two things I think could happen straight away. And you saw it this week, and people have praised Voss for this, but I think it's madness. He brought Lewis Young, and he played him full forward, and people are saying, oh, he moved the magnets. Ridiculous magnet to move. Harry was struggling to move. You play him in the goal square. Lewis Young should have been doing the grunt work if you were going to do that. And the more I've watched this, the more I think there is a reason that we need a third tall. The guy I'm looking at here is Brodie Kent, because he does a lot of his work on the wing. I think that could help Carlton rapidly, very quickly, of him playing in that third forward role and then pushing deep. What that would mean there is that there's going to be a little bit of a shift. Whether that Zach Fisher comes out of the side and you play a Philp who likes to roam up the wing, I don't know. But I think that the personnel is a big issue because it forces them to play this way because that's their default settings. And definitely you are spot on there. They need to learn to draw opposition zones out. At the moment when you're handballing, and it's literal handballs like hot potato, that pressure gets built, that pressure builds. That handball needs to be away from traffic. It's what they did the first 2 rounds incredibly well, and it started to fall off. And that is partly the personnel. And I think now that you're starting to see with the VFL form of some of these players, Carroll is a big one for me, who is doing a lot of his work 50-50 on the wing and on the ball. Sam Philp, who's doing a lot of his work 70-30 on the wing and in the small forward position. Motlop's another guy that drifts. The answers are there in the list. It's when does Voss press the button? But spot on, Jeff. Great comment. I hope I've answered your question, but I really enjoyed that question. Thank you very much, mate. The legend that is Grand Spicer, good day to you, very knowledgeable guy. He asks, I've seen many times the Smalls do not read the play. Trust your teammates, get the ball up the field and start to break away, lead for the ball. Watch the good teams they trust. Too many times, no one to kick up forward and go backwards, not working hard. Exactly, spot on. And how do we get our small forwards into the game? Now, there's 2 things here, and I'll answer this question twofold. Firstly, to answer Grant's point, my issue I've got at the moment with Durden and Owens and Curnow and Harry, particularly last week, is they go ball hungry. They start searching for the ball. As we talked about in the D50 issues, it gets stuck down there. They start to want to get involved. And how do we get our small forwards in the game, asked Giroux. Now, there's something that I've noticed, and I want you to see this. So Carlton, when they're playing well, and they're transitioning, and in the third game, we did transition very well. We found that from D50, it came into the corridor, and then we went back out. And this was Jack Martin and JSOS's position. And they effectively ran into this position. And you saw that the ball was kicked here, creating a contest. And we'd have a wonderful lead from Harry and Charlie. And there was players, usually an outnumber, a front of the ball. So they could handball here. And there was quite a few times that you saw Carlton peel off and kick here. What Carlton are doing now to make it worse is this kick goes. This guy just isn't here anymore. And the kick is coming from deep, which is making it really shallow. And you're starting to see that the small forwards are getting caught up in this contested ball. So when the ball hits the deck, they're already tied up in the contest, and it's a very easy transition out. Now, what I want to see, and how many times do you see this? When you do get stuck here, this is Durden. Quite often you see with good sides, particularly Melbourne, this guy will lead. So his key forward is leading to this zone, drawing players, and this guy leads and he creates that angle. Carlton are horrible at creating angles inside 50, and it really is. We need what Eddie Betts was phenomenal about, and why he surpassed his years was, even though he was cracking on a bit, this run from the pocket is so key. This here is like literally, I can't tell you how important it is in today's game. Running from these areas here from your smalls, it adds another dimension. You see Charlie takes a lot of his marks doing the pockets job of leading there. Carlton needs to start implementing this. And something that is a hope is Philpy and Motlop really enjoy these positions. So that is something Carlton have got to look at, is why aren't their small forwards lead? I can't remember the last time a small forward did it. In the first 2 rounds, Durden and Owens did this. And you see Owens gets quite a lot of lead-up hit-outs. It doesn't happen enough for me. Great points from there. And I think that comes from 1, deeper ball entries, and 2, using a bit of footy smarts. You've got to stay in the zones. Great question here from Sarasboy458. Good day to you, mate, and Alexei. Should we look at Mumford in the mid-season draft if we don't grab him? will be good to have around training. I agree, yes. Probably I think it's a mature age. Maybe not Mumford, but I agree. I think we need a maturer age guy. What's the best solution to our rug situation? Now, I think what's really important is why does Jesus do really well, right? One thing Jesus does really well when he is in the ruck, even though he's not a native ruckman, is look at Bruce and what Bruce did against Wits. He didn't contest the hit out. He stood there and he acted as an extra and he used his body well. Now, I think Carlton are going to have to address this in the mid-year draft, and I'll say for why. Murkoff has come on leaps and bounds, but for me, he's not ready to play the grunt and vigours of AFL football week in, week out. Dependent at this time of writing, we don't know what's up with Peter. If it is a 3-6 month injury, we're going to have to look at the mid-season. TDK, again, see the same. Still not ready. He fought and he battled hard this week. Still, there's some areas to go. He needs help. He does need help. For me, the best ruckman in the mid-year draft, and I don't know if he's entering it, is Southport's Braden Crossley. I covered him at length at the end of the year in the trade period and said that he would be a guy that I think from his VFL form and the work he does around Southport would be exemplary. He's a very good ruckman. He's very like the Mumford role, Alexi. He's been in and out the system. He's a big body. It complements what we've already got. And he's a grafter. And although he's not a world beater, he's a grafter. So that is someone that I definitely look at. But Southport's ruck stocks are schmick. Check them out. But Braden Crossley for me, yeah, is someone that I've got my eye on. These are great questions here from Tim W. Good day to you, mate. Legend of the channel. Our sprint efforts have been down in the opposition in 06 rounds. What does that stat say about us, if anything at all? Well, I mean, what it says there really is that there isn't any run and carry, and Carlton are already in position to do their thing. I think particularly the last couple of rounds it's been really down, and that said that Carlton haven't really had any vigour with the ball. They haven't really looked to track and take the game on. It's becoming very focused on mark, kick, mark. Is it of our down line kick play, or does it indicate that we initiate enough run carry? I think it's partly both, and Matt Thomas goes a bit further. Is it judge the wings Hartley? Does their ability to set up and D50 exits too slow and conservative? Absolutely nailed it for me, and I think this is part of it. I think when you look at the first two rounds, what Carlton did really well is when the ball got to about here, they usually shifted in, and genuinely found these wingers look to play 1-2s. And what's happening now is this red zone, this is where we're looking to deliver it, and it's ending up where we usually would kick it in. What you want to see, and when Carlton are playing well, and O'Brien did this a few times, and Chesney has done that a few times when he's worked the wing, is take the 1-2 and run into this position. You saw it a lot in the midfield as well with the sprint efforts when Carlton were just bolting through here. They'd get the handball and they'd bolt through here. Cripper does it, Walshy does it, Chera does it. That's kind of died down as well the last two rounds particularly, and it's almost like they've got an earmark on the ball being turned over. To focus on this game plan, Carlton have got to become really selfish and devil may care almost. I think you're both spot on. It is too slow and conservative. At the moment our midfield is one-dimensional, and this might surprise a few people, but a lot of people have been asking they want Bam Bam back. I actually think putting Bam Bam in that midfield could be the worst thing ever for our one-dimensional. It may help free Walshy and Chera up, yes, because he'll be doing a bit more grunt work. I'd like to see, and I hate to say it, break the glass for Dow. Break the glass for Dow. I know he didn't play particularly well last week in the VFL, but for me, it's lacking some foot speed, and I think that Dow may be worth a look, because I want to see someone break some lines. And I'm not seeing it enough in the midfield, and that is one thing that Dow does. That is one thing that Dow does. And maybe time to give him, and this is the game. North Melbourne is the game. Let's see it. Ashan asks, where does Sean Darcy live? I don't know, but can he fuck off back to that hole he's come out of? Him and his mate who came on the DeLorean, freaking Rory Lobb. They were tough to watch, weren't they, buddy? Fish around Motlop in, you reckon? Ask Douglas. Good day to you, mate. An AFL hot takes. Is it time to give players such as Carroll, Motlop, Phil, Stocker, Kemp? Seems a lot of top draft talent not getting opportunities. I think there is an element of that for me. I think that's something that Carlton do have to really to look at. I'm totally with you there. And I think that that's a huge thing. And I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you there. I think you've absolutely nailed it. I think if I was picking the team this week, I think for me, my changes would be Setterfield, Cottrell, Nunes, Pitternet, Fisher, Martin out. Carroll, Phillips, Stocker, Murkoff, Kemp and JSOS back into the side. Now, I think Martin and Fisher need a spell. I love Martin. I love Jack Martin. I've always been a fan. I just think that what we need to set a standard of is these guys need to impact. And I think JSOS, for me, is the most remarkable young man in the world. I think he plays that half-forward role really well. And I see a lot of Kemp in that, particularly with this wing issue. They would be my changes, and I agree with you. I think that Carlton are starting to play a very progressive game plan. Morlock, for me, I just want to see another week of him. I think he'll be looking at Durden's position, but I think Durden built enough credits in the bank in his first couple of games for him to be poor. But I do think that that's a nice little rotation there, and I'd be looking at Dow this week to really put in a performance. I don't think Dow will play but in the AFL, but I'd love to see Dow get an opportunity to really chance his arm. Oscar Mcdonald definitely will be looking at that position as well of Young. I do think we desperately need a lockdown one-on-one key defender to free up Whittaker in a little bit. Great questions here from Watto and Giroux. Watto asks, will Setterfield to be dropped this week? Stock is surely to get a chance. I do think, yeah, it's time to bring in Stocks. Definitely. I think for me, his defensive work, but his distribution, so important. And Giroux, what is happening with Walsh? Gets a lot of it, but doesn't seem effective anymore. I think he's getting in the wrong positions. Now, I'm a big fan of Bam Bam. I know that I said that I probably wouldn't play him next week. The reason is I think it's the chance next week to really try something out. North Melbourne are not much cop. Carlton should win it. Now, I do think Kennedy could be an issue with Walsh in the terms of that I think Walsh has had to, last week particularly, do too much of the grunt work, and you want him away from the contest. For me, Walsh does his best work, especially at centre bounces, when you see that wonderful little pincer movement. Pitternet taps it down, Cripper to Hewitt, and then Hewitt handballs over the top and he's out in space. We want Walsh out in space. Now, for me, I'm watching Walsh, and I think that him and Chera are becoming like Gerrard and Lampard. I don't think they can play together on the ball. I think they get in each other's way. And Chera looks like he wants to just be like a Tom Mitchell and just build the play up, which I like. So I think that we need to find a way of getting Walsh on that rotation on the wing. So I agree with you. I'd like to see Walsh be a bit more in space. Definitely get 20-30%. I'm not saying play there full time. But I would definitely think Chera and Walsh, from watching Carlton, they need a little bit of injection, a little bit of give and go. And both of these players like a give and go. And I'd love to see him getting into a bit more space. At the moment, we're giving him to the ball in the worst areas. This is Cripps 2018. At the moment, he's getting the ball in where he can't really impact the game. But there's nothing wrong with Walsh. I just think he needs to get the ball in the hot areas. And at the moment, the ball seems to be way too congested. And it's not quick enough for him to impact the game. Josh Klebs, this is a question for the review. Is Voss getting a free ride? I'm not Voss out, but the last 4 weeks he's been exposed in the coaching box. Still some game style and some selections, a Teague-like. As I said, I'm not jumping his back, but I think these are fair questions from what I'm saying. I think they are fair questions, and obviously they're always going to be a bit of a worry, aren't they? To alleviate you, though, I mean, Champs data hasn't updated this week, but not much has changed. But this time last year, we were ranked 17th for tackles, 16th for tackles inside 50, 18th for disposals, 18th for effective disposals, efficiency percentage, we were 16th. Centre clearances, we were 15th, and stoppage and centre clearance scores, we were 14th. This year, stoppage and clearance were 3rd, number 2 in centre clearances, efficiency 4th, percentage, disposal and efficiency disposals, effective disposals, we are 1st, 8th in tackles and 1st in tackles in full stop, which, I mean, is huge. I mean, inside 50, 1st in tackles inside 50 and 8th in tackles. They're huge changes. They're huge systematic changes. I do think in game we get a bit tepid. It is weird this week, though. I mean, I think the biggest question for me is in the second half, Carlton really had one option, that was go the way they know. Go hard, especially around the centre and things like that. I know they'd lost TDK, but Carlton shark a lot of taps as well. So that's an unforgotten thing. Carlton are very good as well at when they don't have the ball in the hit-outs and the centres. So I think you've got to ask questions. Am I worried? No. Do I think he'll sort it? Yes. I do think I would like to see Carlton be a little bit bolder, though, on the selection table. And I think it's getting to the stage now that he's had to pick the players that he trusts with AFL game experience. We're now getting to the stage now where VFL form is asking something else. So great question, Josh. I hope I answered it. Thanks to everyone who either DM'd or put a post up of the comments and questions for this week. You guys and girls rock. Love you all. I will be back in Wednesday with the VFL wrap and then Friday with the preview. Stay safe. Much love. Pop out.